Good afternoon. In just a moment, we're going to join Sergeant Gene Autry and several hundred other members of the United States Army Air Forces in the Recreation Hall at Luke Field, Arizona. Gene has some songs and other entertainment for you. And today you'll hear the story of how a little 9-year-old girl helped save the lives of 2 Army Air Forces men.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of Points of Interest. I'm Philip Scorza. Normally we're out on location showing you where our history occurred, but today we've brought history into the SCV TV studios. My guest is Marylynn Winlker Butters, and welcome to our television studios, Marylynn.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Marylynn and I share a common bond. I own 4 acres of land that her father homesteaded way back in 1920 and that Marylynn grew up on. This land is situated immediately north of the site of the future Castaic High School, and it is currently just as wild as it was when Marylynn was a little girl here. Let me read you some headlines from various newspapers and magazines about an incident that happened on January 31, 1943. Heroin 9 aids plane victims in mountains. 3 thrown clear as plane hits peak. And here's my favorite. Heroes, Marylynn's only 9, but flyers she mothered say she's tops. Before we talk about what happened that day and the events that followed, we put together a little video from some photographs that Marylynn gave us, and Marylynn is going to tell you the story of her father and the property he homesteaded.
And my father was born, he was actually born in 1898 in Richmond, Indiana. And his family moved out here to California when he was about 11 years old. And growing up, he was very active, camping and hiking, and it just seemed like he had to go everywhere in California to see. It was so much different than Indiana, where he grew up. He enlisted in World War I in 1917. And he went into basic training at Camp Kearney in San Diego. He was sent to France, where he served with the 103rd Infantry Division on the front lines in the woods of Verdun. He was honorably discharged in 1919. Dad filed his homestead a year later in 1920. The notice of Dad's homestead was announced in the Newhall Signal, January the 12th, 1922. Notice is hereby given that Norman C. Winkler of Castaic, California, who on August the 9th, 1920, made homestead entry. Named as witnesses were Lee Romero, Robert R. Sloan, and Bertha M. Sloan, both of Saugus, California. The original homestead cabin was built in 1921. Dad cleared the land and planted more than 200 trees. A lot of trees, mostly eucalyptus and pines, some cedar, and we even had some fig trees and different kinds of trees. He even tried to grow grapes up here, but he was busy planting things, and everything he planted he had to haul water for. He hauled water from Sloan's part of the time, and then from other areas where he could get the water before we had our own. In 1936, Dad moved Mom and myself up here on the property. I was 3 years old at the time. They made the most wonderful childhood for myself and my sister, who came along in 1938. It was just the most perfect place to grow up that you could ever imagine. Just indescribably wonderful for a kid to have all the room to run that you could possibly want, to have horses, your own horse, cows, your dog, your goat, everything to play with, and not to worry about a thing. Dad and Mom did the worrying. The kids didn't. up at here at the ranch, Dad raised more than 3,000 chickens on the property. We sold the eggs to a local business and the people that was in Newhall. Life was hard for my parents at that time, but as a child, I didn't realize that most people were not living as pioneers like we were. Some people actually had flush toilets and electricity. Imagine that.
America had been at war a little over 1 year when Time magazine reported on February 15th, 1943. From a ranch in California's Romero Canyon last week, a dark-haired, 9-year-old Marylynn Winkler watched the flight of a glider towing plane. Suddenly, the plane seemed to break up in midair. Marylynn hurried over 5 miles of mountains and streams, found an injured Army sergeant and private. In the mountain wilderness, Marylynn built a fire to keep the soldiers warm, stood by for 5 hours until the ambulance arrived. Then she found sapling poles for stretchers. Said Marylynn, "I just couldn't leave them alone and hurt like that." Said the sergeant, "She was wonderful." Why don't you tell us in your own words what happened that day?
My dad came down quickly to the back door and said there were parachutes coming down and we had to go. Knowing that terrain and that there was no one out there to help. It was just very rugged. The cliffs went down 1,000 feet, and then we took off. It had been raining, it was drizzling. We just took off immediately, started hiking. But we walked, and we walked, and we hiked. And because of the mud and the rain, your feet collect so much mud, so your shoes, your feet, they get heavier all the time. And we had no idea when we left how far we were going to have to hike. We left Mom alone with my little sister that had just turned 5, and we had no phone. We had nothing. There was no way for her to contact anyone whatsoever. And all the chickens, we had the horses, and several thousand chickens, the cow, and all that.
You were the only ones who saw this happen.
Yes,
So if you didn't get there,
yeah.
nobody was going to get there.
Well, the glider had gone a different direction. The glider and the plane separated. What had happened there, of course, we didn't know at the time what really had taken place. This plane and glider had taken off out of Victorville. They were coming up into bad weather in that area. It wasn't bad when they started, but when they got over there, it apparently got very windy.
Right.
And the wind actually blew the glider right off of pulled the whole tail off of the plane.
Pulled the tail off the big DC that was pulling it.
Yes, it did. It pulled it off. Once the plane had no tail, obviously it was out of control.
Right, right. I have some video of this rugged country. It's not very long.
Yes, you do.
Let me
Yeah.
show that right now so people will have an understanding of what you guys had to do
And that
to
was
get to this plane.
DC-3,
It
I
was the
believe.
DC-3 that was pulling
yeah.
the glider. If we could roll that now, that would be great. Let's do that. We're flying right over the area where the planes crashed. That flat green open space at the top of the picture is the mesa. Those are the cliffs Marylynn and her dad had to get down from in order to reach the crash site. We're on the mesa now, walking towards the edge of those cliffs. We're looking north across Santa Felicia Canyon and the Hathaway Ranch. On the other side of the far hills lies the National Forest. The sudden turbulence flying over these cliffs caused the tail of the DC-3 to rip off. 3 men were hurled out into space, while 3 others went down with the plane. Scattered over these rugged hills lies the mangled wreckage of the aircraft. How long did it take you to get to these people? You didn't even know where they were, actually.
No, we didn't. We didn't know how long we'd have to hike. I don't know. It seemed like a very long time, probably an hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours. I don't know for sure because it was so rugged. And actually, we found the men before we found the fuselage of the plane.
Oh, okay. All
and
right.
there was 3 men there. 2 were laying on the ground, very badly hurt. The third one was able to limp. He could walk just a little bit, and he could speak.
Okay. These are the men who came down in parachutes.
They were actually ejected. They had their parachutes
They had
on
their
and were
parachutes on.
ejected
Okay.
as the plane really started to break apart. There was pieces of the plane that were found all over that area.
Scattered
so
all
it just
over
kind of exploded there, yet it didn't catch on fire.
And we should also mention that 3 men, the people flying the plane, went down with the plane
They
and
did.
died in
They-
this crash.
they
There were
did.
6
Yes,
people
they
on the
did.
plane altogether.
And
So you get there, you find these men on the ground, and
one was, they were just laying flat on the ground, and one was Sergeant Stuart Nangle. Of course, I didn't know their names at the time. He had a broken back, and he couldn't move. None of them, they did not talk at all. They just moaned. The other one, Staff Sergeant Edelman, was very bloody, and he didn't look like he was going to make it. He just didn't. Anyway, with my dad and I, we got wood and we started a fire. How we did this, I'm not sure, because the wood was a little bit wet. It was it had been raining. And so once the fire was going, then it was my job to keep bringing wood up to that fire to keep them warm. And you had to go down a little ravine to get the wood. That's where it was. Some old oak trees had been growing there forever, and you could find scraps of dry, dead wood. It wasn't exactly dry, but it was dead, and when the fire was started, it got going. So I kept doing that, and then Dad said, I'm going to go see if I can find, if there's anyone else hurt, or if I can find the plane itself.
Right.
So he took off to look for the plane. And
how long was he gone then?
maybe an hour or so.
Oh, okay. All right.
And he did find the fuselage, and the 3 men were dead in the plane, unfortunately.
They
did
did
go
not have
down with it.
parachutes on, and they
No,
went down with the
there
plane.
was no time. It happened pretty quickly. So he came back, and then he tried to console this one private, David. I'm trying to think of his last name, but I know it. O'Connor, I think it was. Anyway, David O'Connor, he was scared. Apparently he'd seen a wild animal or something, and he was very much afraid. And in those days, we did have a lot of mountain lions up there. In fact, there was a bounty on their heads, a $50 bounty if you would kill a mountain lion.
Oh, wow.
So perhaps he was, of course he didn't know that, but I think he was from the city, and he was very, very uncomfortable being in the middle of nowhere.
Of course.
You could understand.
Yes, especially after
So-
falling out of an airplane.
Yeah, being ejected out of the plane, it was not a happy time for any of them. It was a disaster.
Can only imagine.
Yeah, so
So how long were you there before help finally, or
forever, it seemed like forever. And I kept keeping the fire going and watching over them, and not aware that they were, not aware that they really could not speak and were hurting. I didn't know they were hurt as bad as they were. They were injured pretty badly.
well, how would you know
You
that?
wouldn't
You
know,
wouldn't know
but
that.
with all the blood and everything.
Sure.
And then Dad and I, we took one of the parachutes and laid it out in a spot where if any planes came over, they would see it.
Oh, okay.
Because we were hoping that they would send planes up.
And
Because,
did planes ever come over?
Yes.
Oh, they did?
But see,
Oh,
the
good.
glider had kept going. It landed in Peru.
Oh,
So the
okay.
2 men in the glider did not get seriously hurt, and they were able to call and let someone know
Oh, okay.
that what had happened, and the general idea maybe where the plane actually came apart and came down.
Sure.
Well, then that afternoon there was 2 little planes actually that flew over.
Okay.
And they were going very slow, and we were just hoping and praying. We thought that they saw us. They saw us there.
Okay.
And they did.
And they did.
They did, thankfully.
And they came and got you guys out
And
of
so
there.
then I helped Dad. We were going to make a stretcher, which is pretty difficult to do when you have so little to make it with.
Right.
And then using the parachute cloth and poles, and I helped Dad to look for poles, find them to make it. We didn't know when help would come,
Right.
And finally then, after doing the fire bit and being with these men all day, at dusk that evening, it was getting dark. Finally, people came. They had gotten there.
Okay.
And it was wonderful because there were several men and 2 horses, and they brought stretchers in.
Oh, good.
And really, can you imagine trying to move these badly injured men on stretchered over this kind of terrain?
No, and I know that terrain very well. I've hiked in there.
Yeah.
It's rugged.
And
Yeah.
I was able to ride one of the horses out, and then the one man that could walk a little, he rode the other horse, and the other men took the stretchers, including my dad.
Got
And
those
from
guys
that
out of
point on, it took us to get to the nearest cabin. It took us, I think, we didn't get there till about 10. So walking
10 at night.
At night.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because and there was a riverbed down in there that had some water in it. I didn't realize that at the time. You couldn't see anything.
Right.
But to carry the stretchers with badly injured men all the way in that terrain, rocks and water, riverbed and everything to the nearest house, which may have been 3 miles, 2.5 to 3 miles.
Okay.
When
Yeah.
we did get to the house, there was 2 ambulances waiting.
Oh, good.
There were police cars. There was, of course, a lot of reporters, a lot of, they were anxiously awaiting this, to...
The reporters were there already.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
They were there already.
Okay.
But fortunately for me, my dad or whatever, he did not allow them to be harassing me at 10 at night. I had had nothing to even eat or drink since
Right.
that morning at breakfast.
Right.
And the dear lady that lived there, Boyd's lived there then in this little house, Armour and Mary Boyd, and
know
she
that
made
house.
me a deviled egg sandwich. So the picture that came out in the papers, here I am bedraggled, my hair all stringy, all bedraggled, eating this sandwich. I couldn't care about anything. I just wanted food
You were
and
just
wanted to go to
hungry.
bed.
Well, that's one of the interesting things about this story is all the things that happened to you after this adventure that you had.
Yes, it was interesting.
And because
Very surprising to me.
I have some of it here. After the accident, you received a commendation from the general in charge of the Army Air Force, a man named General Hap Arnold. I've heard of him.
Right.
On your
He was-
heroism. I don't have that. And then you became quite famous. Quite a few newspaper articles appeared in newspapers. I read you the one from Time magazine, Salt Lake City, Oakland, all across the country. And you appeared in your own comic strip. True Comics. It's an educational
believe it.
comic book published by the Parents Institute. I think we have that. Can we put that up on the show that? There's the comic
my
book.
gosh.
I'm not going to read every single panel. I just want to show the comic book. It's True Comics. It's the story of you, and you are
I'm the Wonder Girl.
you're the Wonder Girl in here. Of course, this has been rewritten and fictionalized for the comic book.
Was it ever?
But the main point of the comic book, and it ends with, in panel 10, it says, the lives of 2 U.S. Army flyers were thus saved by the bravery and resourcefulness of this 9-year-old girl, a glorious example for all American
And
youth.
single-handedly, no doubt.
Well,
I did all
they
that.
did not mention
I
your
mean,
father in this cartoon,
no.
but we know, of course, your father
And if I
was
did
the-
all those wonderful
Right.
things, I mean, if I was that great, I think World War II should have ended right there.
You would have ended. But to me, and this is great, the comic strip is great, but to me, what happened afterwards, the comic book, you got an invite to appear on the Gene Autry radio
Yes, I
program.
did.
And for those who don't know, Gene Autry was as big a star in those
He
days
was
as
very
anybody
big
has
star,
ever been.
right.
And then you went on a train to Arizona because he was
Phoenix,
in.
Arizona.
Gene Autry was a sergeant in the Army Air Force,
Yes.
and he was doing his radio program
He
from a
did
place called
programs
Luke
every
Air Force
Sunday
Base.
for the men that were stationed out
And
there.
you know, we have a copy
Air
of that
Force.
radio program here.
Yes, I just found
Marylynn
that
did
out.
not know
I
about this
didn't.
until about a week
In
or
fact,
so
I'd
ago.
never heard it. When
She'd
I
never
was
heard it.
there doing it, I was so nervous that I was not paying any attention.
And we should tell people they did not rerun radio shows, so there was no
No.
opportunity for you to hear it.
No.
And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I would like to play your interview with Gene Autry. I need to set the stage here if I can. A couple of actors played a dramatization of the incident you lived, and the dramatization is about 9 minutes long. Then Gene Autry ends the dramatization by telling the live audience what happened after the men were rescued, and he then introduces you. Okay?
Right.
Let's have a listen here. Here is Marylynn Winkler when she was 9 years old, being introduced to a live audience and then talking about her plane crash and her life on the ranch.
Men of Luke Field, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have you meet 9-year-old Marylynn Winkler. Marylynn, we're happy to have you as our guest. From what I've heard about you, you're quite a help to your father around the ranch.
Well, I try to be, Sergeant Autry, but I don't have any brothers to help, and there's always lots of work.
Well, is it all work, or is it kind of part fun, too?
Oh, it's lots of fun. I wouldn't trade places with the girls in the city for anything.
Do you have your own horse or anything like that?
Yes, I've got a beautiful bay, and I ride along with our cowboys almost any place they go.
Oh, that's fine. Is that how you happen to know the hills so well?
That's right. I guess I've been about everywhere around our place.
Mm-hmm. Well, Marylynn, how did you feel when you found Sergeant Edelman and Private Mingle?
Oh, gosh, I was awfully scared. I knew I ought to do something for them, but I couldn't figure out what to do.
It seems to me you did pretty well.
Well, after I got Dad, things were better. We were able to get them warm then, and everybody says that helped an awful lot.
How did they finally get the men out to safety?
Well, after the cowboys and the Army Rescue Party got there, the hills were so wet and muddy, they couldn't get trucks or ambulances closer than 2 miles away.
They were carried out by stretcher then, huh?
It would have been an awful job even to have done that. So Daddy and I cut some poles, and they made litters out of parachutes, and the horses took them out.
Well, Marylynn, your resourcefulness was really wonderful. And I want you to know that we all thank you on behalf of a couple of fellow Air Force men. And there's just one more question that I'd like to ask you. After it was all over, were you tired when you got in bed that night?
Well, I was still so excited I could hardly sleep. But when I did go to 2 o'clock in the morning, boy.
Well, I'll bet. Very much, Marylynn, for being here today. And when you get back home, pass along our thanks to your father, too.
I'd like to thank the people at Gene Autry Entertainment for allowing us to play part of this program. And like we said before, radio shows were never rerun, and so you've never heard that before. Looking
No.
back on this 70-some years later, what do you think about all the attention you got from it?
Well, I tried for years and years. I never even mentioned it. All my married life, I think I mentioned it once, maybe twice. I did not. Okay, I appreciated the fact that Gene Autry had me there. It was a wonderful experience, and I thank him for that. He was a great guy. And I appreciate what they were doing. On another hand, they called me a hero. And I really objected to that. I was never a hero, never. Those 2 men that were laying there so badly wounded, they were the heroes. Those 3 men that died in the plane, they were the heroes. Phil, and every man and woman that joined the armed forces in World War II, every one of those were heroes, and many of them never came back. Over 300,000 never came back, of men and women. Those were the heroes. I wasn't. I was just doing what anybody would do. And I resented that. That just wasn't me.
Okay.
Maybe you can understand that, the way I felt.
I can, in a way, and I'm certainly not going to disagree with you, but at the time, I think we needed to find everyday people who were not in the military to be heroes.
Well,
And I think that's one of the
Maybe
things
so.
you fulfilled that. I'd like to close with
Phil,
one
can
more
I-
article. Is there something
can I
else you
just
wanted
say
to add?
one
Yes,
other
go ahead.
thing,
and then I'm gonna-
please?
Sure.
Because during World War II, our country was a United States of America.
Right.
It has never been that united before or since.
Right.
And in school, we wrapped bandages for the Red Cross in grade school. We made victory gardens in grade school. And we also bought war bonds for the war effort. And there were so many things. As a nation, we had food rationing, different things were rationed, meats and sugar, all
Right.
kinds of things.
Right.
You couldn't get real rubber tires, they were synthetic. And people gladly did this for the war.
It also allowed you, as a little 9-year-old girl, to participate in something
Yes.
which is unique, which is really
Yes.
unique. I have one more little article I want to share with you, and it was written from the Salt Lake City Tribune. This is dated June 6, 1943. Heroism may be defined as a triumph of soul over self, of duty over danger. But the peril of warfare is not the only incentive to daring deeds, nor is the battlefield the only crucible in which heroic natures are developed. Take the exemplary behavior of little Marylynn Winkler of Southern California. She heard an Army plane crash on a hilltop 5 miles from her home and set out for the wreckage to see if she could be of help. Although but 9 years old, she went to work and built a fire and did what was possible to make the men more comfortable. But she waved all compliments aside, saying it was something anyone would do. I just couldn't leave them there alone and hurt like that. Thank you, Marylynn, for being here today and for sharing your inspiring story.
Well, thank you for listening and having me here. I appreciate it.
And thank you at home for watching a very special Points of Interest. I'm Philip Scorza, and I have one more quick quote from that same article. Long live that little 9-year-old lass, Marylynn Winkler of Castaic, California. May her heroism and philanthropy be remembered and revered. And it is. Thank you.
It's amazing. Thank you.